Podcast Heat Wrestling. I'm Derek Sabato, and you better recognize it's Tuesday night here, and we are with the Lowdown with D'Lo Brown. D'Lo, how you doing tonight?
I am great. We're back live and in color, and I am not in my usual haunt. I am here in Waterloo, Iowa, the home of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. So pardon my surroundings, but the show must go on.
Are you out there for the Hall of Fame?
Yes, Ron Simmons is getting inducted this weekend, so I'm here to support my mentor, my father, my best friend, and watch him get inducted to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I couldn't be more excited.
Damn. Super excited for it. Waterloo's always a good time. Gerald Briscoe's going to be out there. Bradshaw's going to be out there because
I'm meeting everybody down in the lobby bar as soon as I hit end. The elevator is 15 feet from my door, my room, and the bar is 10 feet from that elevator. So I'll be down there, and as soon as before the smoke settles on this episode, I'll be down there hanging with the boys.
That's awesome. Have a cocktail for all of us here at podcastheatwrestling.com. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to be finishing up our conversation about D'Lo's time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling with New Jack, with Mustafa, and with Jim Cornette. Before we get started, though, we got to pull up on the screen. Did you enjoy AEW's All In? D'Lo, we talked a little bit about it watching AEW last week, and Tony Storm ended up beating Mercedes Moné, and Adam Page is the new AEW champion. I know you didn't see all of it, but what you saw of it, what did you think of it?
I thought it was one of their better pay-per-views from production standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, and from the people who went over. It was the right move for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So it to me was overall a success for them, and I hope this is a turning point in A, their booking, B, their drawing ability and their attendance, and then live ratings. I hope this is that moment, that watershed moment that turns the corner.
They are having I forget what the name of it is, but a residency in Chicago for the next couple of weeks for Dynamite and Collision. What a great wrestling town. What a way to get started back coming off. Now, one of the hard things is always having one of those great shows, and then it's kind of you're hitting the reset button.
Yeah.
Chicago's the good environment to be in to really get some stories going again, isn't it?
Chicago, and it's no surprise where Chicago stands in my heart as the number one wrestling city on the planet. And if Chicago loves you and respects you, they will take care of you. And yeah, to do a residency there, but you've got to give Chicago something. You can't give them dreck. You've got to give them great pro wrestling. And if you give that to them, Chicago will give love back to you.
Speaking of love, there was a bit of controversy this weekend with the end of Saturday night's main event and our latest poll that we just popped up. Did the WWE do Goldberg right with his send-off? Quite the interesting ending to it. What did you think of how that all went down?
I was feeling bad for Goldberg because you agree to come back for that match. You agree to the finish. Probably knowing you were going to get your 5 minutes to speak at the end to say your goodbye, and to have that goodbye cut off in the middle of it, man, I feel for him, and I don't know whose fault it was. I just know you need to time that show a little better. Hell, cut a match, cut someone else's promo. I would rather give 5 extra minutes and go off the air a minute early than a minute late when you've got someone like that who wants to just say goodbye to his people for the last time on your television. So once again, I don't know, what was the issue, but that's something. Hell, at that point, you go into overtime and you go to NBC and say, "Hey, can we have 3 extra minutes? I don't care what it costs. This guy just needs to talk."
Goldberg didn't seem happy. He was in an interview today with Ariel Helwani and kind of spoke his piece. There's always this internal thought. The story has always been that Triple H and Goldberg never really got along. Is that, I don't think there's anything to that, but it's hard not to feel like, how did this actually have to happen to Goldberg?
And here, I don't think anything personal went into it. I can't speak for 100%, but I mean, as far as I know, Triple H has always been business. And even when there's guys he doesn't like personally, if it's good for business, that's Vince McMahon's old rule. I don't care what I feel about you as long as it's good for business. And so I can't see Tripp just pulling an ego power trip and going, all right, cut his feed now. I don't see that. I'm sure heads did roll. Someone got yelled at for that. Someone might have got, if this was the old Vince days, someone would have gotten fired that night. And I'm sure they're going to get to the bottom of it. But at the end of the day, you work backwards from that main event. You go, okay, Goldberg needs 5 minutes to speak, and let's time this backwards.
We were texting, and I think part of what I thought was the issue of Seth Rollins' injury, shoot or not shoot, seemed to kind of stretch out possibly the finishing sequence of that match a little bit. But you had to be able to adjust in the ring, on the fly, whatever the case may be. Someone's got to be cueing the ref. Hey, we're 5 minutes, we're 4 minutes, we're 3 minutes. There's some type of communication that's going on. And I think you rarely see it in the WWE. That makes people suspicious of it. Now, did you see the meme of Bret Hart sitting in the control room?
I did. It's kind of funny because if anyone's going to cut Bill Goldberg short, it's going to be Bret Hart.
Yes, it is. It is the greatest running joke in the history of professional wrestling internet, and I hope it continues to be. I hope they also get to squash the beef at some point, but it is immensely entertaining. And speaking of immensely entertaining, let's get back to our conversation, talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the Gangstas, and Jim Cornette. Where we left off, New Jack was brawling at a show in Kentucky for less stature, and it seemed like the bloom was off the rose a little bit with the Gangstas and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. What do you remember being the first time you saw heads butt between New Jack, Mustafa Syed, and Jim Cornette?
It wasn't just head bumping. It was just kind of the Gangsta angle was running its course in Smoky. And as Cornette would say, sometimes you got to go away. How can we miss you if you don't go away? And it was time for the Gangstas to move on. We had run our course, and then creatively, maybe Jack and Cornette had gotten at it a little bit, but it was definitely time to move on.
Do you think that at the end of the day, Jim had done everything he could have with how far they had gone in that angle?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anywhere else to go. The Gangstas came in and dominated everybody, took on the Rock and Roll Express, and it went full circle. Eventually, putting the Rock and Roll Express over. I mean, there's not much more you could do after Undertaker comes in and wrestles with the Gangstas. So I think the story and the angle was running out of steam. I mean, because Jack and the Gangstas in general is shock and awe, but then when you're around too long, you become normal. And once you become normal, then you're just another act that's in the locker room. So I'm glad not glad, but it was time to move on.
Were you worried about what your spot was going to be if the Gangstas had left? And how close were you with New Jack and Mustafa while in the company?
I was extremely close with Jack and Mustafa, and I didn't know what my future was going to be because I was still green. I was in my first year at this point. I'm still not even a full year in. Well, just over a year. So I didn't know what the future was going to hold for me. And I knew Jack and Mustafa were in conversation with Paul Lee up in ECW, and I know that Paul Lee didn't want a threesome. He only wanted a 2. And so I wasn't part of that equation. So I knew my next move had to be something where it was going to, elevate me up, being more than just the guy standing, behind New Jack and Mustafa.
Would you have gone to ECW if presented the opportunity?
I would have, because that was home. Growing up in Jersey, that was ECW was the old TWA, which I grew up watching. So I would have loved to have gone back there. I don't know if my wrestling style really worked there because I was more a traditional wrestler where ECW was the new wave, blood and guts kind of stuff. And that really wasn't what I was about. And I don't know, even if I'd have gone there, I don't know how long I would have stayed because that wouldn't have put me in a position to succeed, I don't think.
When you think back about the time and the angles, were you surprised there was no big blow off with the Gangstas?
in retrospect, you look back on it, you go, yeah, there should have been the last little angle that built to a massive event. Whether it be one of Cornette's, highlight events of the summer. But I think, as you put it earlier, the bloom was off the rose, and it was time to part ways.
One of the fun parts for me when you take a look back at ECW and Smoky Mountain is there is a perception of a feud between the two companies. And really, it's probably Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette.
Mm-hmm.
If they had ever been able to harness themselves to work together, how special would Smoky Mountain and ECW together have been?
See, and I love their two creative sides. Here's the thing is, ECW would have never worked in Tennessee, and Tennessee would have never worked in Philadelphia. So I think if you'd have had Paul Lee and Jim Cornette come together creatively to make a joint project that would work in both places, wow. Just wow. Two of the most creative guys who are almost mirrors of each other, putting their brains together would have been something special. And I would have loved to be part of that. Once again, I don't think Smoky Mountain really works well in Philly.
I don't disagree with that. We saw that eventually in ECW in 1997, but that's a story for a different day. I want to thank everyone so far for joining us here on The Lowdown. The poll's up right now. Did you enjoy watching the Gangstas in Smoky Mountain Wrestling? Click yes or no. Let us know what you think. And also drop your questions for us as we discuss Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want to answer your questions. Drop a super chat. It'll go right to the front of the line. And D'Lo, as the Gangstas make their way out of the company, what is the conversation with Jim Cornette and you? Is he telling you, don't worry about it, we're going to transition you out of that spot? Or were you hoping to get some of the residual heat when they left?
I was trying to maintain some of the residual heat, but at the same time, he was also saying, don't worry. There are people above us who are paying attention to what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. And then I eventually went down to, first I went up to Ohio, to Al Snow's gym in Lima, Ohio, where I was around a lot of the people who are going to be going to the next level. And then I went down to Puerto Rico just to get some more experience. But yeah, I was always in communication with Cornette, and I had guys in my corner like Cornette and Jim Ross. And I had done several, at this point, enhancement performances up there. So I was on the WWF's radar. It was just a matter of finding the right fit.
Speaking of the right fit, one of the biggest shows in Smoky Mountain Wrestling history was the Super Bowl of Wrestling. And you opened the show taking on who we know now as the Road Dogg.
Yes.
Any memories of what it was like working with the Road Dogg Jesse James back then?
Awesome, because I had worked with the entire Armstrong family, including Mama Armstrong. So to get out there and just to feel the way he put matches together, his thought process, and then to go out there and have a really good match, and then to come to the back and be complimented on the work that I did, man, it puts you on cloud nine and lets you know that, okay, I know I can be at the next level because I'm going there against guys who have excelled at the next level, who are about to go back to the next level. Because Road Dogg quickly went from this to being Double J's roadie.
Yeah.
So knowing that I could be in the ring, go toe to toe with them, with guys like that, it really set me up and gave me that confidence boost that I needed to start elevating my work up.
When you look at that show, and it's a talent-filled show, Al Snow, Marty Jannetty, Dan Severn, The Undertaker, The Future Kane, Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
Man, that is a big-time show in Tennessee. When you step into that locker room, I know you talked about how when you faced The Undertaker, you knew you made it, but that had to be a locker room that was just like blown away.
That was one of Cornette's big shows, and it was, and we would later find out was one of last big shows.
Yes.
So to not only be invited to be on that show, to open the show up, to have a spot, to be in that locker room, you realize this is an elite group that's here right now. I mean, Al Snow got pretty much hired after that night because he wrestled Marty. Then they became the New Rockers not too long after that.
Yep.
And then, you have guys who they were already, I think Kane might have already been signed, just, not known. Just to be part of that, knowing I could be on the next level of guys going up. To this day, it's one of those things I owe Cornette more than he'll ever know.
You would not do much for the company after this. In fact, the company would shut down just a few months later. Why did your time with the company end before the company did?
It was just there was nothing left. The Gangstas had run the course. That Super Bowl was a way of me showing myself to the next level, and now it was go out and get a little more seasoning away from here. Let's watch your development, and that's what I said. I went up to Al Snow's gym in Ohio, and then went on to Puerto Rico. So it was about getting more experience. I started working a lot in the Midwestern territories, just honing my skills.
When you look back, what was your biggest takeaway from working with Jim Cornette and then Smoky Mountain Wrestling to the rest of your career?
I tell everybody that was like getting my college education. That was learning more than the basics, but still more to learn. But it put you in a good position to succeed. Gave me the way I built matches, my psychology, how I interacted in the locker room. Taught me how to be a pro with being around hundreds of years of wrestling experience in that locker room. It really gave me a foundation that I still use to this day in teaching and in working and all aspects of wrestling. My year in Smoky Mountain I would consider 5 years or 6 years on the independents to anybody else.
Do you think at the end of the day, Smoky Mountain Wrestling closed because Cornette was too busy working with the WWF to fully concentrate on the business, or was the business inevitably doomed to fail?
I think Cornette just got divided, and he was being forced more and more to spend time in Connecticut and really focus on that product. And I just think, I don't know if all of his heart was into it. I don't know. It just seems like Smoky Mountain was a product also. I think Smoky Mountain's a product of being like 5 years too early, because some of the things that we did there would work on TV during Attitude in a cool way. So I think it's a product of Cornette spending a lot of time in New York, or I call it New York, Connecticut, and just losing focus on what was there.
When you look back, do you think it ever could have been a national success?
That's hard because the Southern style of wrestling used to work with the old NWA. I don't know if the way the country was changing, we would see it 2 years later, how Attitude would change completely. And I don't know if Smokey would have translated on a national level, but it would have been fun to try. It would have been fun to try.
We put a poll up on podcastwrestling.com. The question was, will Jim Cornette or Vince Russo ever work for a major wrestling promotion again? You've told me that you stay in contact with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. 25% said only Jim Cornette. 4% said only Vince Russo. 2% said both Jim Cornette and Vince Russo. 69% said neither. So I want to start with the smallest number, Cornette and Russo. Could you imagine seeing them both back working for major promotions of professional wrestling?
I don't. For example, Cornette, unless they're going to film in Louisville or in Castle Cornette, I don't see Cornette traveling anymore. I don't think he's got the heart to get in a. He doesn't fly, so I don't see him driving hundreds of hours anymore. At his age, when he can do a lot more just sitting at home and enjoying a restful experience. And I go with Russo too. I don't think he likes wrestling enough anymore to get back into it, from what I understand. So I don't think either of them ever get back to a major promotion by choice, not because they couldn't, just by choice.
I have an interesting poll I'm going to put up. The question is going to be, do you think Jim Cornette and Vince Russo will go into the WWE Hall of Fame? Do you ever suspect either one of them or both to go in, or neither?
I could see Cornette going in just for his contributions on and off screen at every level of wrestling, no matter where he's been. I'm not sure about Russo because I don't know if they put just a air quotes writer in. I don't, even though he was, captain of a ship during one of the greatest times in wrestling, I don't know if they put a writer in the Hall of Fame. So I could see Cornette going in as a manager, as a commentator, as a producer, as creative. He's got so many different avenues of why he's a Hall of Famer.
Would you put Vince Russo in the Hall of Fame?
For his place in the business, I would, because for better or worse, without Russo, there's no Attitude Era. Attitude, I mean, if you know the story, Vince wasn't completely in love with Steve Austin in the beginning. He had to be convinced of what Steve Austin could be. And then Steve Austin became the phenom and changed the business. So I would put him in personally.
David Sahadi told me an interesting story on his debut episode of Beyond the Lens. And David Sahadi is a former higher up for WWE production.
Mm-hmm.
He said there was a meeting right before WrestleMania 13 where it sounded like Vince McMahon was not ready to pull the trigger on Steve Austin.
No.
And there was a consensus that Vince was incorrect. How different is pro wrestling if that double turn doesn't take place in Chicago?
We can look back on wrestling right now and look at watershed moments where the business changed directions. The double turn with Bret Hart and Steve Austin may go down as one of the most pivotal moments in the history of this business. And if that doesn't happen, Attitude doesn't happen, Ruthless Aggression doesn't happen, Roman Reigns doesn't happen, John Cena doesn't happen. It's a whole different world right now. And it's a world I don't even want to think about because I don't think it's anywhere as successful as it was. I don't think wrestling crosses into popular culture as much as it did. Without that double turn, man, it's a whole different world.
How about this imagined point? WCW outlasts the WWF. Then what?
Oh, man.
What happens when the Time Warner merger goes in and TNT decides we still don't want wrestling? Doesn't matter how successful it is. Where is the business then? You look at that domino effect, the butterfly effect of everything. Thank God someone talked Vince McMahon out of that.
You know, going with that scenario, it almost feels like wrestling would revert back to its regional status. Like I could not see it being the national or international conglomerate that is today. I think it would have gone back to territories because what kept wrestling relevant was the crossover into mainstream.
Yep.
And that was all due to the Steve Austin effect. Man, what a scary scenario that is right there.
Thank God it didn't happen. And that's why we're here today on podcaststevewrestling.com doing the lowdown with D'Lo Brown. D'Lo, we've been going back and forth about some ideas on some topics and some people to talk to. So I'm going to throw them out to some of the listeners. I want to get some of the reactions. Leave your comments below. Drop a super chat. Hey, we actually just got a super chat before I get into that. AOTV Productions, one of our top fans here on podcaststevewrestling.com, Liv Morgan Stalker, was catfished by someone pretending to be her and humiliated him. So Liv Stalker wanted to get back at quote unquote Liv. What do you think of this? This has been a big topic. What is your opinion on some of this that's going on right now?
It's a slippery slope because there's a lot going on and there's a lot to digest in this and unpack. I get he was catfished and I get he was upset. At some point, you try to verify who you think you're talking to is who you think it is, and not just try to vent out. And then there are other ways to try to get even with people. And the whole catfishing of people, it's wrong for people pretending to be somebody else. Man, I mean, look, I give the guy a little discretion for being humiliated and taken advantage of, but it doesn't give him the right to track someone down and try to get even.
It is a scary situation. AOTV Productions, thank you so much for the super chat. We got the poll results. Do you think both Jim Cornette and Vince Russo will go into the WWE Hall of Fame? 67% voted Jim Cornette. 33% voted Vince Russo. No one voted neither, and no one voted both. So there are people holding out hope that one day Cornette and Russo will both get in the Hall of Fame. That will be a speech for the ages if Jim Cornette gets inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Let's just blow up the world and have him inducted at the same time on the same night, and let's see where it goes.
Forget the marathon speeches. Let's just put them at a table. One microphone here, one microphone there, and just let them go.
You could sell that live as a premium live event and just have a 2-camera shoot and let them go.
Speaking of a 2-camera shoot and let them go, what we've been discussing behind the scenes for the Lowdown with D'Lo Brown, we've been in conversations with Chaz Warrington. So we hope to have him on the show sometime soon. Keep your eyes on social media. We will announce that to happen. And I actually got a chance to speak with your friend and mine, Scott Demore, this week, and he gave us permission. And we are going to do a watch-along of one of the most infamous tag team matches in Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling history, the Bullet Club Civil War. The Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, taking on the War Dogs. D'Lo, do you think we can get someone else to break down that match with us?
I would like, and I have full disclosure, I have thrown out a line to a couple good friends of mine, and when his schedule permits, Doc Gallows will come on and talk and break down that match with me. And since I was the agent of that match, we're going to have a nice conversation about putting it together and what we put together in the back and what happened out in the ring, how closely those two are together. And we'll talk about the collaboration between agent and talent on how a good, successful match is put together.
That is something that has never been done before in podcasting wrestling history that I have been able to do research on. So back in the day when William Regal had his podcast, we did what was called film study. So he would go through one of his matches and break down everything that happened. We're going to get both sides of the talent spectrum, from the agent to the talent in the ring, breaking down every aspect of it with your comments live. We will be able to stream the match and have live reaction from D'Lo, the agent, from Luke Gallows, and we will open the questions in a behind-the-scenes, inside baseball event like never before. You will be able to sit in and do a film study of match, move by move, psychology breakdown, what happened, what went wrong, and it's going to come exclusively here on podcastheatwrestling.com with the Lowdown with D'Lo Brown. D'Lo, we got a big week here on Podcast Heat Wrestling. Tomorrow night, we are going live with Mike Santana of TNA discussing TNA Slammiversary. He's going to be challenging for the TNA World Title, taking on Joe Hendry and NXT Trick Williams. How surreal is it to hear that TNA Slammiversary is going to have the TNA title defended by an NXT wrestler against two of the biggest stars in TNA?
And we've talked about this before, that fourth wall is gone between companies, and the fact that you can have these crossover magical matches, these dream matches that could have never been thought about 2 or 3 years ago, is fun. It's fun for the fans, because now there's no more what if. What if Trick Williams took on Joe Hendry and Santana? Now we get to see it live and enjoy it. And I think at the end of the day, the one who wins the most is the wrestling fan. And that's the important thing, is the consumer of this product is getting something they never thought they were going to have. And wrestling fans, take it all in, enjoy it, support it, because the more you support it, the more things like this will happen.
And we're going to be back next week. This Thursday, by the way, we got the second edition of Beyond the Lens with David Zahadi, continuing his conversation on Vince McMahon. Friday, we have Todd is God with Todd Gordon, talking about ECW's Heatwave 1995. Stay tuned for next week. It sounds like there's a couple surprises brewing. And D'Lo, if we can get one of our guests, we will announce it on social media. So make sure you follow along at D'Lo Brown 75. I'm at Derek Sabato. If we can't get anybody to sign in with us, we're going to be talking about the Nation of Domination. Big topics, big events, big watch-alongs, big things coming your way here on podcastheatwrestling.com. Make sure you throw us a like, hit, subscribe, and always tune in when we go live. Turn on your notifications right here on podcastheatwrestling.com. D'Lo, anything else we need to hit this week?
I'm going to be at the Hall of Fame. I can't wait. I will try to get some comments. If I can record a few things with the boys, there's luminaries all over this place. And if I can get some comments, I will drop it in here in the lowdown next week. Just giving you my feeling on the Hall of Fame. So stay tuned for that. And as always, Derek, I appreciate you and I appreciate our listeners out there and our viewers. And this is something new for me and it's fun. And I hope you guys enjoy it.
We hope you're all enjoying it. Drop us a comment below. Let us know how you think that we're doing here on the show and what you want to hear us discuss here on the Lowdown with D'Lo Brown. We'll see you next week right here on podcastheatwrestling.com.